Do I have to make my mortgage payment this month? Or do I have to make my rent payment this month? Those are both very good questions. And today we're going to shed some light on what is currently available as assistance for you and what laws are being proposed right now. But before we get started, I'm going to ask you to hit the like button because I worked really hard on this video and I guarantee you that the information that you're going to get is top notch. And if you don't like it, you can take your like back later. Now let's get started. Okay, so jumping right into it, the CARES Act has allowed anyone with a mortgage that's backed federally to skip a series of mortgage payments. And if you're a renter, you can skip up to 90 to 120 days of rent payments depending what state you're in. But before we get into it, I do want to explain to you that this is not mortgage and is not rent forgiveness. This is just pushing that money back to a later date. So we're going to get into what that actually means. So let's talk about mortgage borrowers first and the three options that are available to you right now. We have a forbearance, we have a modification, and we have a second mortgage. Let's look at the definition of what a forbearance is. So a forbearance is basically taking the payments that you're going to be missing for a series of time and then making them due later on. A modification would be taking those payments that you missed and then rolling them into the amount of the mortgage you owe. So it could be tacked on. For instance, if you owed $100,000 and you skipped $5,000 worth of payments, you can then tack those onto your loan and you would own $105,000. And the second mortgage would be where the bank takes all your missed payments and then tacks on a second mortgage to the current existing mortgage that is on your property, and they can assign whatever terms they want to it. It could be a 15-year loan, it could be a 30-year loan, it could be whatever interest rate that you guys agree upon. And not only that, but it could also be forgivable. Now, one valid concern that a lot of people have had is, will my credit get affected if I file for a forbearance? Well, in the past, it would have been reported on your credit. And some people have actually reported that banks have reported that this time around, but it's not supposed to be. It's actually illegal for them to report anything negative on your credit due to a forbearance that's because of this pandemic. So if you do find yourself in that situation, just call your lender and make sure they get that removed from the bureaus right away. Something I learned while researching this topic is that 6.4% of all households in America are actually in forbearance right now, which is pretty shocking. And by the time you see this, it may be even higher. That means that almost 1 in every 13 homes is in a forbearance. Now, what options are available for you in a forbearance? Well, you have the lump sum option. And this might actually get you in more trouble than you're currently in. So for instance, if you said okay to a forbearance and your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, if you skip the next 3 months, you're gonna owe $6,000 all in one shot. But what lawmakers are saying is that you should have more options at the end of your forbearance than just one lump sum. You'll also have the ability to pay that over 6 months in a short-term payoff, or you can do a long-term payoff, which may even be as long as 30 years, such as your mortgage. So I would probably prefer to do it on a longer-term basis because the way we're heading right now, inflation will be a big factor in the near future, and you'll be paying that money off later on with inflationary dollars, which means it won't have as much value then than it does now. Now let's talk about second mortgages for just 1 second. So it is proposed that HUD will be allowing people to do second mortgages on their home. Now, HUD, if you don't know, is anyone with an FHA mortgage. And what it means is that if you miss $10,000 worth of mortgage payments, what they would do is take on that money and then tack it on as a second mortgage. The reason why I like that option is because you can actually figure out any terms that you want. You can actually work out a really good interest rate. You can work out something that's actually lower than what you currently have. And that interest rate might actually be 0, and you can pay it off maybe in 10, 20, 30 years time. So if I were you, I'd probably look for that option first if you have an FHA mortgage. If not, then you will want to see what your lender has available. Now, I do want to add this. The only people that are guaranteed a forbearance or a modification right now are anyone who has a government-backed loan. But if you have a loan that's not government-backed and is privately held, then you're going to want to reach out to your lender right now and ask them what options they have available. Most banks are cooperating, and some banks even have their own programs that are very similar to this. So the first step in you getting some answers is picking up the phone and calling your service provider today. If you don't know if your mortgage is federally backed, I am going to leave a link down below in the description where you can look up to see if your mortgage is either held by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. The other federally backed mortgage holders are the VA, USDA, and FHA. So if you fit into one of those categories, then you're in good shape. Now, let's talk about renters. If you're currently renting a residential property, then Section 4024B of the CARES Act will actually have some protection for you. What it outlines is that starting March 27th, you have a 120-day grace period in which your landlord cannot start an eviction, charge you late fees, or any penalties whatsoever. So this is a really good help for anyone who's going through a hard time. But it's not automatic, and it is different in every state. What that means is that you have to give your landlord some notification. You have to either write something to him and make sure it's certified to prove that he received it, send an email, or start some kind of a correspondence with him. And if you do have a verbal conversation with him or her over the phone, what you need to do is document that. And what I mean by that is that whatever you spoke about, you should send an email or a text message reinitiating what you just said over the phone with that person so you have records of it. Because if there's any misunderstandings later on, whoever has the best documentation will win any argument that you may have to take to court. Now, here's a question that I know I'm going to be asked. Can you use your security deposit for the rent? Now, every state is going to differ on the answer to this question. In New Jersey, recently they passed what's called Executive Order 128, which does allow landlords to tap into the security deposit to cover the rent, but that could be a double-edged sword. Even though landlords can draw from that money, the problem is if the tenant leaves and the place is a disaster, they're not gonna have any money to draw from in the future. If you're a tenant that's a month to month, you can actually use that to cover the next month's rent if you choose to, and you don't have to replenish that money for 6 months if you start a new lease or if you're month to month. So that is a little bit of help for the tenant if they choose to do that, but it could also be a way to get yourself in trouble if you're a landlord. So what I just mentioned is that every state actually has different landlord-tenant laws, believe it or not, and they have different ways in which you should go about letting your landlord know. Or if you're a landlord, there's actually different laws in every state that state what you need to disclose to your tenant. Some states actually force the landlord to give options to their tenants. You actually have to prepare a CARES Act package which shows to them what options are available through the CARES Act and give them the options of which one they want to pick. You should definitely look into every state's laws. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description where it outlines every state by state what their laws are for rentals, tenancies, and even commercial leases. Now, while we're on the topic of commercial leases, I do want to explain to you that you may not be protected. So if you have a store, or if you have a restaurant, or if you have anything that is along the lines of being a commercial lease, you may not have any protection for you. Now, you're going to want to check what the state has available for you, but what I have found is that if you are a foreign company who's operating in the United States, there may not be any assistance for you. If you have over 500 employees, same scenario. Or if you're publicly traded, you're probably not going to get any assistance either. Now, this is not written in stone, and you're definitely going to have to talk to your attorney about what options you have available, but it seems like most of the protection is only for residential tenants. If you're a small business and you need help with rent payments, what you can do is apply for the PPP loan. I'm going to leave a link right here where you can actually see how you can go about doing that so you can help offset any rental payments that you may have in the future. So now let's talk about what proposed help may be on the way. So Representative Ilhan Omar has actually introduced a bill called the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act. Now, it is gaining some traction, but it's most likely not going to get approved the way it sits right now. Number one, because our president is a Republican and big on real estate. The way that currently the act is written, it does not favor landlords at all. It is actually very heavily weighted on the tenant's behalf. Now, there has to be some balance. Obviously, you know this, because you can't just have one segment of the population getting helped while the other one is actually losing out. So I'd like to see some more help for renters and for homeowners through the passing of that act, but it does still currently need a lot of tweaking. The way the act currently reads right now is that it states that there will not be any mortgage payments or any rent payments for the duration of this pandemic, up to a year, and it can also be extended after that. If you're a tenant, you never have to make those rent payments during that time. And if you made a rent payment during April, you're actually due to get reimbursed that money. If you're a homeowner and you made your mortgage payment in April, then you also have to get that money reimbursed back to you. Now, it gets really ugly when you start to see what actually landlords are going to have to go through in order for them to comply. So I do feel like that needs still a lot of fixing, and it will be some time before we see the final product. If you want to learn more about this proposed act, I did a video where you can find out all about what stimulus is coming along the way, and you're going to want to watch that video by checking it out right here. So if you'd like an opportunity to win some culture gear, answer this question for us right here. Have you been approved for a modification, forbearance, or any other type of mortgage assistance? Or are you a renter and have you worked something out with your landlord? Leave it down below in the comment section, and after 7 days we will pick the most popular comment and we will send you off some dope culture gear. It could be a hat, could be a hoodie like this, could be some other gear. You'll never know if you don't leave it down below. So here is some good advice for you. Communication is key. You want to start a dialogue as early as possible with your bank or with your landlord, and you're going to want to document everything that you do and everything that you say. If you ever do have to end up going to court, the judge is going to side with anyone who shows a better argument, whoever is better articulated. And if you have everything laid out for the judge, they're going to side with you. No matter whether you're going up against a big bank or whether you're going up against your landlord, whoever's better prepared and has done their homework and their research, kind of like watching this video, will be the one that's going to come out on top. So the CARES Act has actually provided billions of dollars of relief for people who have mortgages or for rental assistance. Those who have mortgage payments can actually put those on freeze for up to 1 year, depending on who holds your mortgage. But you're gonna have to make sure that you read the fine print.
Oh, okay. I know some of these words.
Most importantly, what it states is that if you do utilize one of these options, the money is not forgiven. The money has to be repaid back. So you want to make sure that you work out terms that you can actually afford once that money is due. We're in the process of building the largest real estate group across all 50 states. If you're in real estate sales or you're considering getting into real estate, I'd love to speak with you. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description where you can get in contact with me and have a one-on-one chat. If you've enjoyed this video, share it with a friend. Consider subscribing and hit the notification bell. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. If you'd like more information about the topics I talked about today, I'm going to be leaving links down below in the description section where you can actually read all the articles and all the publications that I used to make this video. If you have a commercial lease and you want to learn more about the PPP loan and how it can help you with your business, you're going to want to watch this video right here. And if you want to learn more about what proposed stimuluses are on the way, then check out this video right here.